एकम अक्षरम हृदि निरंतरम भासते स्वयं लिख्यते हृदय कुहर मध्ये केवलं ब्रह्ममात्रम् यहम् इति साक्षात् आत्मरूपेण भाति हृदि विषमनसा स्वं चिन्वता मज्जसा आनचलनरोधा आत्मनिष्ठो भवत्वम्। देहं मृण्मयवत् जडात्मकम् अहं बुद्धिर्नतस्यास्त्यतो नाहं तत्तभावशुक्तिसमये सिद्धात्मसद्धा ओहं भावयुतः कुतो वरधिया दृष्टात्मनिष्ठात्मना सोहं स्फूर्तितया अरुणाचल शिवः विभाति स्वयं सोहं स्फूर्तितया अरुणाचल शिवः पूर्णो विभाति स्वयं। Namo Ramana. In this, the Thursday Satsang from Ramana Maharishi Center for Learning, it has been our practice to read verses selected from Guruvachaka Kovai, the work by Muruganar Swamigal. 2 verses are selected for us. Each verse reading is followed by a short meditation on its meaning, and that is followed by a 10-minute practice of Atma Vichara. After these 2 segments of verse reading, meditation on meaning, and self-enquiry are completed, there will be summing up remarks by Shri Venkatesh Deshpande ji, and that shall be followed by the offering of Sri Ramanastotram. The verbal chanting will be by Prarthnama and Vaibhavji online, and the floral offering shall be from right here by Shri Manjunath ji. We begin the satsang by taking the first verse selected for us, verse number 143. we find this in the segment Investigation into Truth, which is the first of the three segments. The other two being Meditation on the Truth and Anubhava or Experience of the Truth. This 143 we find in Investigation into Truth, the futility of scholarship. The futility of scholarship. 143. Scholarship, let us look at it as the accumulation of the nuanced or the various nitty-gritties and various analysis that is present in book knowledge, and having that as one's refined ability. Let us take that as scholarship. 143. The knowledge of scriptures should prompt one to reach the heart, the source of the ego, by relying on the grace of God as the primary support in such a way that the ego ceases to be. Now, the knowledge of scriptures should prompt one to reach the heart, the source of the ego, by relying on the grace of God as the primary support in such a way that the ego ceases to be. If it does not help in this way, the knowledge borne as a burden by those who behave as if they are the body, the illusory lump of flesh, is nothing but the swinging dewlap of a goat. The dewlap is the small daddy-like projection of fleshy hanging, which one sometimes find in goats. Underneath their lower jaw, a small projection will be there. It is a useless appendage. So the book learning will be like the dewlap, says the verse. There is a note by Muruganar Swamigal says, the grace of God is that which springs forth naturally in every being all the time. The grace of God is that which springs forth naturally in every being all the time. Since knowledge that does not help one to reach the heart is totally useless, it has been compared to a goat's dewlap. Until one reaches the heart, the ego will not cease. Hence it has been said to reach the heart in such a way that the ego ceases to be. To reach the heart in such a way that the ego ceases to be. Any effort to reach the heart that relies primarily on ego consciousness will be utterly futile. This is why it has been said, relying on the grace of God as the primary support. So it is not the sadhana or the ego which brings about the merger in the heart. It is only the grace of God. Bhagavan. There is a quotation from Padamalai. Bhagavan, everything that one has led, everything that one has learned is total falsehood if it does not become a means for mind consciousness to subside within the self. Everything that one has learned is total falsehood if it does not become a means for the mind consciousness to subside within the self. There is a Tirukural verse which says, Katradanal Ana Payan Enkol Valarivan Natral Thoravar Enin. Natral Thoravar Enin. That the whole purpose of learning is to learn that there is one omnipotent power, which is the grace of God, which is running everything. It is in the presence of grace of God, which is present in every being and all the time, says Muruganar, in whose presence the whole creation is going about. The whole purpose of learning, says Thiruvalluvar, is to surrender to that one omnipotent power. Katradanal Ana Payan Enkol. What is the purpose of the whole process of learning? It is not to accumulate and wonder at one's own ability to reproduce through memory like a tape recorder, but to understand that there is one power which is in whose grace the every action, every being is going, is living, learning and merging into that one grace. So one has to surrender to that one grace, says Thiruvalluvar. In the same vein, the verse goes, the knowledge of the scriptures should prompt one to reach the heart, the source of the ego. So the whole purpose of learning, there is a question in Who Am I, where Sivaprakasham Pillaival asks Bhagavan, what is the purpose of scriptural learning? All scriptures say that the mind should be quietened, says Bhagavan. Once you know that all the books are telling only quieten your mind, then you have to start quietening your mind, not adding to it with more book knowledge. So the only purpose of book knowledge, so suppose this is the last sentence we all learned also, that is good enough. That from here on, all one has to do is quieten the mind and take it to the heart. Should prompt one to reach the heart, the source of the ego, by relying on the grace of God as the primary support in such a way that the ego ceases to be. So whenever we get a doubt in sadhana, am I doing enough? Have I come long way? Am I sincere or not? All these are doership questions. I am useless fellow. Hereafter I should do well. The beginning of the journey itself should be offered to God. Before we start Girivalam, we all pray to Bhagavan for allowing us to start the Girivalam. To thank him to allowing us to start the Girivalam, to stand in front of the gate and offer that Girivalam to him. And he allows us to complete the Girivalam. So the doership is not there at all. There is no doership in that. So where is the ego sadhana? The ego which is going to vanish. How it can credit that it has come to the heart? Only the grace of God that is ever present in every human being, in every being, says Muruganar. That alone is the reason that we are able to go into the heart. The heart and grace of God are not two different things. But since we know grace of God from our experience, the heart, each one of us may not know, because the sadhana is required to go there. But grace of God, all of us we know, because there are many incidents in each of our lives which has happened without rhyme or reason or without being eligible for it. What we call as miracle of grace. And the more we are able to surrender and reduce our ego, the more we see God's hand, the more we see the karuna, the grace, connecting everything. The less of the ego, the more of God's grace. You see that everything is connected by that grace. Everything is happening in that sannidhi. When the ego is getting diminished. Obviously, when the ego is submerged into the heart, then the whole thing is only grace. There is no activity or other things. It is all grace, grace, grace only. That is the submergence in the heart. What is the primary support? Primary support is grace of God. If it does not help in this way, if the scriptural knowledge does not help in this way, the knowledge borne as a burden to those who behave as if they are the body, the illusory lump of flesh, then that knowledge is nothing but the swinging dewlap of a goat. All that knowledge that you carry, I know this scripture, I know that scripture, I am an expert in the nuances of this particular scripture. All that is a wasteful appendage of no use to life, says the verse. So what is the essence we have to gather? That all book learning, all scriptural learning is only to take the ego to the heart. What is the practice? The practice is when the ego gets fattened, only when it goes after objects. The sensory world, the sensory body, the breath, the mind, the intellect, all these are objects after which the ego runs. Now, fortunately for us, The sensory world and sensory body are also present as thoughts in the subtle area. So what Bhagavan says, get rid of them, the attachment in the thought area. Then even if the body is there, who is there to worry about how it is being maintained? Who is there to worry about when it is going to drop off? Whether the body and world are there or not, there is no one to bother about it. It happens by the force that takes care of everyone. So there is no one to worry about when it is going to exist, when it is going to drop off. That's why Bhagavan says, don't worry about the sensory area now, take the subtle to the source. If you take the subtle to the source, without the subtle, the gross has no other, it just drops off. And one can abide in the heart itself directly. So what is the practice Bhagavan gives? As soon as a thought arises, in whatever area it is related to, one has to inquire, for whom is this thought? Because if you go with the thought, then the ego gets fattened. How does the ego get fattened? By all the contents. The more the scriptures you read and accumulate in the mind, the I also is strong. All the scriptural and other thoughts you dismantle, the ego also gets dismantled. This contents and the I, they form a duality which is one face and the other of the same coin. So far as those contents, the possessions are there, the possessor also will be there. When the possessions are exhausted, the possessor also vanishes. Therefore, the heart rises and shines. When this happens, the contents are all exhausted, and the person who is holding on to the contents is also dismantled. Then that Hridayam, it rises and shines as I. Till that, the Atma Vicharam is to be continued, is to be pursued, till one merges in the heart. Is it because of one sadhana that one comes to the heart? Obviously not. It is due to grace. Not only is one sadhana not present. In the heart, nobody's sadhana is present. No path is present. No thoughts are present. There is no cause, there is no effect. There is no rhyme, there is no reason. There is only the limitless self, where all the paths get absorbed. All the religions, all the spiritual practices, all the scriptures, they all merge into the heart along with the ego. If this is not done, and one values one scriptural knowledge, taking the fleshy body to be I, then that scriptural knowledge is a wasteful appendage, says the verse. Why would one want to accumulate such waste? So let's do the Atma Vicharam, which attacks directly this waste product called accumulated knowledge. As each thought arises, ask, for whom is this thought? This thought is for me. Who am I? Take the ego to the source with effort. Practice till effortlessly one abides in the heart. Revatima, you can set the time for us. We will sit in self-enquiry for the next 10 minutes. Namo Ramana. We continue the satsang by taking up the second verse, 886. This we find in the third segment, experience of the truth. The self is eternally realized. The self is eternally realized. 886. If that unequal state, which is to be experienced by us at a later date through tapas, if that unequal state, which is to be experienced by us at a later date through the tapas that has taken the form of self-abidance, truly exists. If that state truly exists, then it exists even now, just as it will in the future at the time of attainment. If that unequal state, which is to be experienced by us at a later date through the tapas that has taken the form of self-abidance, truly exists, if that state truly exists, then it exists even now, as it will in the future at the time of attainment. So, that the self is eternally realized. This eternally realized is also given as a support for us who think we are all trapped in time. All our lingua is with reference to time. When did you come? When did this happen? What time will you be here? When were you born? Let us join and celebrate that time. All this, hereafter I will behave properly. Hereafter I will take the sankalpa of carrying out this practice. All these are time-related lingua. Therefore, the self is also related to the time for our sake as eternally realized. The very word eternally is not there. Because in the self, there are no concepts. There are no concepts to hold as past, present and future. Namandri, Naled, Naded, Nadumkal, Nam Udambel, Nal Natul, Nam Paduvam, Nam Udambo, Nam Indru Andru Endrum Undram. நாடு இங்கு அங்கு எங்கும் ஒன்று நாம் உண்டு நாள் நாடு இல். The உள்ளது 40 verse, it says that without the self, is there time or is there space? Only when I identify with the body, I am trapped in time and space. Whereas if I inquire, who am I? Then I find that yesterday, today and tomorrow, this I is there. Only if the I is there, self-aware I is there, yesterday, tomorrow, today and tomorrow are present. Whether I am here or in some foreign country or in some other place in India, ingu angu engum, the self-awareness. If somebody asks, do you exist? They will say yes. If you ask, are you in Mumbai? Then an old person, old Bombaykar will say, no, I am in Bombay. So the place and the name can, though they are both in the same place, it can change in name. Whereas, if you ask, do you exist? Then the answer will be unequivocal yes, for which they don't need any other support. And here it is said that if the unequal state, which is to be experienced by us at a later date, through the tapas that has taken the form of self-abidance. What has the tapas taken form as? It has taken the form of self-abidance. What is this self-abidance? Self-abidance is the dropping of the non-self. What Bhagavan does in his death experience? He inquires, what is it that dies? All the non-self are subject to birth and death. The self alone is beyond birth and death. It is self-luminous. It is beyond birth and death. All the other concepts, all the other non-self are subject to birth and death. So how does he inquire? He says that the fear of death came. And I inquired, what is it that dies? So Bhagavan is inquiring into why this death thought gave him so much fear. So he is inquiring into the nature of death. That is a separate branch of meditation in Buddhism. What is this death? What is all subject to death? Self alone is beyond birth and death. What is it that dies? This body dies. This breath dies. These thoughts, which are the possession of I thought, they all dies. The I thought also dies. So he stills all of that. He says the body is going to die, it is to be carried. So all the sensory objects perceived by the body are of no use in knowing the self or knowing the truth of death. The body and the sensory world are subject to birth and death. So they are of no use in knowing about the truth of death or the truth of the self. So drop that, still the body. No use of eyes, ears, tongue, taste and all those things in knowing the truth of death or knowing the truth of the self. So still that. Then the breath has birth and death. It has beginning, it has end. So hold it. All the other thoughts appear and disappear. So don't go after them. Still all the thoughts and still the I thought. Hold the I thought and other thoughts still. So all these are the substances subject to death. They are not death. They are not the truth of death. They are all dieable. So drop all the dieable things, then only you will know the truth of death. Ara in the dil, kalan me yaar. What is death? These are all these things subject to death. Body is subject to death. Sensory world is subject to death. Breath is subject to death. Thoughts are subject to death. The I thought is subject to death. So still them all. And Bhagavan says, then the heart rose and shines. The present and past tenses are meaningless. So it rises and shines as I. Am I dead? Bhagavan asks. These are all dead now. The sensory world, the sensory body, the breath, the other thoughts, the I thought, are all still. Am I dead? No. The I rises and shines. He realizes I am the deathless spirit, the heart, the self. And that, the anubhava of the self, the abidance in the heart, the abidance in the self-abidance, the self-attention or self-abidance. What has happened in that? The truth of death is realized. What is the truth of death? Truth of death is the self. All those things are the substance is subject to death. But what is death in reality? Death in reality is actually the self. Those are all relative deaths. Once you cross the relative deaths, the absolute death, which is actually absolute life, absolute death, absolute life, absolute waking, absolute sleep, all these are one and the same. They are the names given to the self. So absolute death is the same as absolute life, is the self-abidance. Once who practices self-abidance, they have crossed the time. The concept of time is no more there. Kalan, ara indidil kalan me yaar. What is time? Who is? Rama says in Yoga Vasishtam, time is such a substance, it can kill Rudra, Vishnu and Brahma also, he says. Now what am I to do? He wonders. And Bhagavan gives here a process by which that very Kala is slaughtered and crossed in self-abidance. Arayadidil Kalan me yar is the self alone is there. So the truth of the death and the abidance in the self are one and the same. It is the self-luminous self that is shining. Once one abides here, then is it something that has been achieved? Is it something that has been got? The verse is no. It must always be present. Therefore, that which is to be got is actually present now itself. That is why Nammalvar in Bhakti Marga, he has this shloka which says, "Oh Bhagavan, I do not know whether I will be conscious or not in a later time. So whatever I do as japa now, please treat it as the sadhana done in my last moment." See how wisely the Bhakti Margi has said, don't rely on time, don't postpone sadhana to a future time. Future time you may not be conscious. So take the present moment and pray that the present sadhana itself be taken as in lieu of all future sadhanas. So the future time where God is going to appear, the God must be present, the omnipresent one must be present right now, is what the verse says. So God is not, the self is not something that is attained. Self is something that which is eternally present. Forget eternally present. There is no eternal, there is no transient. There is only the self-luminous self. So let's do the sadhana, which removes the difference between the eternal and transient, makes us abide in that self, which is the heart. Let us do Atmacharam for the next 10 minutes. Revatima, you will help us out again. I think she will. Namo Ramana. May I request Venkatesh ji to give us the summing up remarks. Namo Ramana, sir.
Ramana. Gurur Brahma, Gurur Vishnu, Gurur Devo Maheshwaraha, Gurur Sakshat Parabrahma, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Dhyanamoolam Gurur Murti, Pujamulam Gurur Padam, Mantramulam Vakyam, Mokshamulam Guru Kripaha, Mokshamulam Guru Kripaha. Namo Ramana. So Bhagavan is giving us two very important messages in these two verses today. One, see, if you really look at our real life example, right? We use Google Maps. Now, when we use Google Maps, we are at a point A, we want to go to a point B. And effectively, we do not know how to go from point A to point B. So we put on the Google Maps and we say we are going to go on and how the Google Maps says, and we'll follow the instructions. Now imagine for a second what happens. It happens in our lives. It happens to me itself. Now Google was telling me to go on a particular path to get home quickly. But what happened? I was a smart fellow. I'm smarter than Google. You know, all the knowledge I have about going from where I was to where I was going to go, I think I've done it so many times that I should be able to use my knowledge and you know, Google is just trying to send me through a wrong way. So I decided to go, using my knowledge, I decided to go on my own path, my own method, which I normally take. And when I went on that path, the whole road was showing red throughout. So it took me at least additional 40 to 45 minutes to get home. And this was a great lesson for me. Google has so many satellites in the air, and it knows the shortest way to take you from point A to point B. And then what happened? But I thought that my knowledge that I have is enough. And Google doesn't know as good as how much I know. So that what happens? So that it actually, it's a hindrance. It bothers you. It creates hindrance in your movement. So Bhagavan says the same thing. Grace is natural. Grace is there. But when we do this morning shloka, Hridaya Kuhara Madhye Kevalam Brahma Matra, everybody knows this by heart. Everybody, if is woken up in the middle and of the night, if you say Hridaya, they will say Hridaya Kuhara Madhye Kevalam Brahma Matra. They will say that. All who are in this satsang today will say that by default. But how many of us walk that path? It's like the Google map. Google map is saying, go that direction. Bhagavan is saying, Hridaya Kuhara Madhye, in the cave of your heart, Shiva is shining, is dancing, it's Mauna dance. Shiva is dancing. But do we go there? No. I think I know better than God. You know, God may be telling me that Shivam is there, God is there, but you know, I know better because I will go to Tirupati, I will go to Shirdi, I will go to Tiruvannamalai, I will go here, there, doing tapas all around, and then everybody will finally will say, hey, you have to go back and go. Bhagavan is saying, go back. And then, but still, I'll go back for some time, and then again I will come out with my knowledge, and then I will know. I do not have total confidence. I don't have total faith in Bhagavan's saying that I must go to the self and be with the self and establish in the self. I don't have that total faith. Now, if you have total faith in Google, you will get to the destination in the shortest period of time. Exactly the same thing Bhagavan is trying to say. When he says that the distance between you and yourself and the self is nothing. There's absolutely nothing. There's no distance. But you do one huge suttarivu, you can't do one loitering around. Oh, you feel so nice. I've done bhakti yoga, karma yoga, I've done all these danas, I've done all these things. Then finally I've come back to that same point where I started. And Bhagavan is saying, instead of wasting lifetimes and lifetimes of doing all this, just turn inwards. And when you turn inwards, you will experience that God, you will experience that silence. So that's the first lesson Bhagavan is trying to tell us. The second example is the second lesson that Bhagavan is giving us also is very, very simple. So he says, we know in our lives that we want to be happy, right? First, and if you see, read Who Am I? Everybody wants to be happy all the time. That's the first sentence. That means everybody wants to be happy all the time. Is everybody happy? No. Why? So the Bhagavan says, I will be happy on a later date. Later that time. Tomorrow, I will be happy. When I get that nice, I will go to MTR and have that nice, lunch. Then I'm going to be happy. Now I'm going to be miserable. Whatever the situation may be, I'll be miserable. But, so if you go and have that MTR meal, you will be happy. Now you are miserable. Now what happens? Suddenly there is a good news that comes. You are miserable at this point of time. Think about it. You are miserable at this point of time. Half an hour later, you've decided you're going to be miserable. From now till tomorrow lunchtime, you're going to be miserable. Okay, half an hour later, there's a good news that comes. What happens? Oh, there is your grandchild or your child has got first rank. Oh, fantastic. Suddenly what happens? That misery vanishes. And there's great joy, there's happiness, there's feeling of goodness, there's a feeling of wholesomeness, all that. You want to buy sweets and do all sorts of rejoice, tell your neighbors, tell all your friends, send SMS meeting, put it on Facebook. All these things happen. And suddenly you feel, oh, great. What happened to the misery? Misery vanishes. Now what happened? You decided, each one of us decided, and tomorrow only after eating that thali, I'm going to feel happy. But you're feeling happy now itself. What does that mean? Bhagavan is trying to give us the second lesson here. He says, your innate, your within you is happiness. You are happiness. You have forgotten that you are happiness. That's it. That's why you are saying, oh, I will, if happiness is there now, because of the situation, you become happiness now, or if you wait tomorrow for that thali and become happy, where is this happiness? Is it in that news today, or is it in that thali tomorrow? No. MTR may have to stand for 1 hour to get that thali. But what happens? Where is this happiness? Happiness is your true nature. You are happiness. This is what Bhagavan is trying to say. So don't postpone things. Don't say, I'm going to be happy tomorrow. I'm going to be happy now. Life is happening when? Life is happening now. Be happy now. Once you start practicing this, then what happens? You are always happy. It does not matter. Then this concept what Nandakumar is talking of time and space does not exist at all. When are you going to be happy? I'm always happy. Like when I asked Nandakumar, how are you? He says, I cannot be any better. Here's what he tells me. What means what? He's always happy. So that's what it is. So these two great lessons that we do need to have total faith in Bhagavan and follow it to absolutely to his teaching. That's point number one. And number two is, do not postpone anything for later. Everything is happening now, so you should live your life in the present. Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramana. Namo Ramana. Thank you.
Namo Ramana, sir. May I request Vaibhavji and Pratnama to chant the Ashtotram?
Yes. Namo Ramana. भारद्वाज विश्वनाथ विरचितम् श्री रमणाष्टोत्तर शतनामावली अपार सच्चे सुखवारिराशे यस्योर्विमात्रम् भुवनम् समस्तम् गुहाहितम् तम् रमणम् गभीरम् चिन्ताविहीनम् हृदि चिन्तयामि ॐ नासेन महंसेन जाताय नमः ॐ श्रीरमणाय नमः ॐ गुरवे नमः ॐ अखण्ड संविदाकाराय नमः ॐ महोजसे नमः ॐ कारणोद्भवाय नमः ॐ जगद्धितावताराय नमः ॐ श्रीभूमिनाथस्थलोस्थिताय नमः ॐ पराशरकुलोत्तंसाय नमः ॐ सुन्दराय तपःफलाय नमः ॐ कमनीय सुचारित्राय नमः ॐ सहायाम्बा सहायवते नमः ॐ शोणाचलमहोलीन मानसाय नमः ॐ स्वर्णहस्तकाय नमः ॐ श्रीमद्द्वादशान्तमहास्थले लब्धविद्योदयाय नमः ॐ महाशक्तिनिपातेन प्रबुद्धाय नमः ॐ परमार्थविदे नमः ॐ तीव्राय नमः ॐ पितृपदान्वेषिणे नमः ॐ इन्दुमौलिना पितृमते नमः ॐ पितुरादेशतः शोर्णशैलं प्राप्ताय नमः ॐ तपोमयाय नमः ॐ उदासीनाय नमः ॐ महायोगिने नमः ॐ महोत्साहाय नमः ॐ कुशाग्रधिये नमः ॐ शान्तसङ्कल्पसंरम्भाय नमः ॐ सुसन्दृशे नमः ॐ सवित्रे नमः ॐ स्थिराय नमः ॐ तपक्षपितसर्वाङ्गाय नमः ॐ फुल्लाम्बुजविलोचनाय नमः ॐ चन्द्रिकासितहासश्रीमण्डिताननमण्डलाय नमः ॐ चूतवाट्यां समासीनाय नमः ॐ चूडिकाखिलविभ्रमाय नमः ॐ वेदवेदान्ततत्त्वज्ञाय नमः ॐ चिन्मुद्रिणे नमः ॐ त्रिगुणातिगाय नमः ॐ विरूपाक्षगुहावासाय नमः ॐ विराजदशलाकृतये नमः ॐ उद्दिक्तनयनाय नमः ॐ पूर्णाय नमः ॐ रचिताचलताण्डवाय नमः ॐ गम्भीराय नमः ॐ परमाचार्याय नमः ॐ सुप्रसन्नाय नमः ॐ अभयप्रदाय नमः ॐ दक्षिणास्य निभाय नमः ॐ धीराय नमः ॐ दक्षिणाभिमुखाय नमः ॐ स्वराजे नमः ॐ महर्षये नमः ॐ भगवते नमः ॐ ईड्याय नमः ॐ भूमविद्याविशारदाय नमः ॐ विमलाय नमः ॐ दीर्घदर्शिने नमः ॐ आप्ताय नमः ॐ निजमार्गप्रदर्शकाय नमः ॐ समदृशे नमः ॐ सत्यदृशे नमः ॐ सत्याय नमः ॐ प्रशान्ताय नमः ॐ अमितविक्रमाय नमः ॐ सुकुमाराय नमः ॐ सदानन्दाय नमः ॐ मृदुभाषिणे नमः ॐ दयार्णवाय नमः ॐ श्रीशोणाचलऋग्वेदस्कन्दाश्रमनिकेतनाय नमः ॐ सद्दर्शनोपदेष्ट्रे नमः ॐ सद्भक्तवृन्दपरिवर्ताय नमः ॐ गणेशमुनिलिङ्गेन सेविताङ्घ्रिसरोरुहाय नमः। ॐ गीतोपदेशसारादिग्रन्थसञ्चिन्नसंशयाय नमः। ॐ वर्णाश्रममतातीताय नमः। ॐ रसज्ञाय नमः। ॐ सौम्याय नमः। ॐ आत्मवते नमः। ॐ सर्वावनिमतस्थानाम् आराध्याय नमः। ॐ सर्वसद्गुणिने नमः। ॐ आत्मारामाय नमः। ॐ महाभागाय नमः। ॐ मातृमुक्तिविधायकाय नमः। ॐ विनताय नमः। ॐ विनुताय नमः। ॐ विप्राय नमः। ॐ मुनीन्द्राय नमः। ॐ पावकोज्ज्वलाय नमः। ॐ दर्शनादगसंहारिणे नमः। ॐ मौनेन स्वात्मबोधकाय नमः। ॐ मृच्छान्तिकरसान्निध्याय नमः। ॐ स्मरणाद्बन्धमोचकाय नमः। ॐ अन्तस्तिमिरचण्डांशवे नमः। ॐ संसारार्णवतारकाय नमः। ॐ षोडादृशस्तुतिद्रष्टे नमः। ॐ हार्दविद्याप्रकाशकाय नमः। ॐ अविच्युतनिजप्रज्ञाय नमः। ॐ नैसर्गिकमहातपसे नमः। ॐ कमण्डलुधराय नमः। ॐ शुभ्रकौपीनवसनाय नमः। ॐ गुहाय नमः। ॐ दण्डपाणये नमः। ॐ कृपापूर्णाय नमः। ॐ भवरोगविषग्वराय नमः। ॐ स्कन्दाय नमः। ॐ देवतमाय नमः। ॐ अमर्त्याय नमः। ॐ सेनान्ये नमः। ॐ पुरुषोत्तमाय नमः। ॐ श्रीरमण भगवते नमः। श्रीरमणाष्टोत्तरशतनाम पूजां समर्पयामि। यस्थानोररुणाचलस्य पदयोः स्मृत्याजनिं प्राप्यत दिव्यानुग्रहसुप्रवाहविवशस्तादात्म्यभावं गतः वृन्निष्ठस्वरवीरनित्यतपसा लोकान् पुनास्यैकराट् तस्मै श्रीरमणाय ते नम इदं योगोत्तरज्योतिषे। ॐ नमो भगवते श्रीरमणाय।
नमो 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 रमण सदाशिव प्रभावरण नमो महर्षि नमो महर्षि दर्शन सुख मंगल मुख सकल जीवहित सम्मुख ब्रह्म संगीये सदा सुष्ट सदा हृष्ट सदा शिवानंद पुष्ट परम महर्षि ब्रह्मनिष्ठ समदर्शी नमो 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 रमण सदाशिव प्रभावरण नमो महर्षि नमो महर्षि ನಮ್ಮ ಮನವದೊಂದು ಕಾಡು ನೀನರಿತಿಹೆ ಅದರ ಜಾಡು ಹಿತವನರಿತು ನೀಡು ತೆಮ್ಮ ಕೊರೆಯ ತಣಿಸಲೈ ಬೇಡಲೆಂದು ಬಂದ ನಾವು ನೋಡಿಯೇ ತಣಿವೆವಯ್ಯ ಮೋಡಿಗಾರನೇ ಹಿತವ ನುಡಿದು ಪೊರೆ ನಮ್ಮನು ಬ್ರಹ್ಮ ಸಂಘಿಯೇ ನಮೋ 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 ರಮಣ ಸದಾಶಿವ ಪ್ರಭಾವರಣ ನಮೋ ಮಹರ್ಷಿ ನಮೋ ಮಹರ್ಷಿ। बोलो भगवान श्री रमण महर्षि की जय।
ನಮೋ ರಮಣ ಅಕ್ಕ, ಎಲ್ಲರಿಗೂ ನಮೋ ರಮಣ.
ನಮೋ ರಮಣ.